Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be looking at our first set of notes on how humans have evolved over time. So that will involve us looking at some ancestors of humans as well as some of the physical characteristics that have changed as time has gone on. So the dot point we're going to be focusing on today is the one looking at the characteristics that belong to mammals, primates, hominoids, and hominins. You need to make sure by the end of this video that you are able to distinguish between those four groups of species and the distinguishing features of each. Let's start with the group that we're probably all most familiar with, the characteristics of mammals. So mammals is a classification group of different organisms, and there are quite a few everyday organisms that we can identify belong to this group. So obviously humans belong to this group, apes, monkeys, chimpanzees, things like dogs and cats, koalas, kangaroos, whales, dolphins, those sorts of things. So they're all falling under the classification banner of mammals. And I guess the characteristics that you need to be aware of that belong to mammals are listed on the screen here, but some of the key ones that you'll probably think of straight away when you think of these animals are things like all mammals have some sort of hair or fur covering their surface. Mammals also have the ability to produce their own milk to feed their offspring. And we know that mammals give birth to live young, so they're not obviously going to lay eggs and have the eggs hatch. There are some exceptions to this rule, but the general rule for mammals, these are the characteristics that we need to be looking for. This does mean that when we move on to the next slide and we look at the difference between the primates, the hominoids, and the hominins, obviously all three of those groups of species belong under the banner of mammals. So we would expect primates, hominoids, and hominins all to have the characteristics of mammals that we see here on the screen.
So let's start off with the difference between primates, hominoids, and hominins. Okay, so this is an image looking at how we classify different organisms. So you would have remembered back in year 11 or even junior science, you looked at classifying living things using their kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. This diagram is representing that, but it's solely looking at primates, hominoids, and hominins. Okay, so when we're looking at primates, we're down at the order level. Okay, so we know they belong to the kingdom Animalia, they have backbones, other features, that sort of thing. And then we're looking at the classification of primates. If we want to get a little bit more specific, as we move down that classification scheme, that's when we can classify something as a hominoid. Okay, so that's usually around the area of family, or in this case, a superfamily. You don't need to worry too much about what that is. And if we want to classify things even more specifically, we can move down to the genus of hominins. Okay, so there are even fewer organisms in that area of classification. So just a reminder, as we work our way down that classification system, we are narrowing our search, or we're narrowing the number of organisms we're looking at because they have less of those traits that we're looking for. So primates, we're going to have lots and lots of organisms falling in this category. Hominoids, less because we're getting more specific with our traits, and hominins again will have even less because we're taking that next step and getting more specific with traits as well. So let's have a look at those traits that belong to each of those groups. So first of all, we've got primates. Now, most people, when you use the word primate, typically think of, monkeys or chimpanzees, that sort of thing. And you're not wrong to think of that, but it also does include a lot of other things as well. So humans are technically classified as a form of a primate as well. And that's because we have a lot of these characteristics, or we do have these characteristics that are listed on the screen there. So I'm not going to read through all of them, but I will point out the main ones that you should be identifying as traits that primates have. So things like having an opposable thumb. Okay, so that means that our thumb is positioned in a way that we are able to grip things. So we've got an image there showing us the opposable thumb and what we can do with it. The other really amazing trait that we have, and we probably take this for granted, is our vision. Okay, so we've got stereoscopic vision, which just means that both of our eyes are facing forward, and it allows us to have that depth perception, so that we can, maybe better hunt or evade a predator, that sort of thing. And we also have the benefit of having color vision as well. The other thing we have that is a trait of primates is we have larger brains than most other organisms on the planet. Not all, but most, okay? And I will leave the other, I will just explain that last one because you're probably not going to know what sexual dimorphism is. So sexual dimorphism is just referring to the males and the females of each of those species of primates. It's really easy to distinguish them apart from one another, usually because the males are larger in size, stronger, maybe they have certain markings on them that the females don't, but it's usually quite easy to determine whether we're looking at a male or a female of that species. Okay, so when we move on to hominoids, okay, all of these are still primates, okay, but so they have all the features that were described on the previous slide, but we're getting a bit more specific with our traits as well. So when we are looking at hominoids, they have all of those traits that primates will have, but they also have these things as well that are listed on the screen. So a great distinguishing feature is that hominoids don't have a tail. Okay, so things like chimpanzees, gorillas, humans, we don't have tails. We are still primates. We still have all of those traits that primates have, but we also share the traits of hominoids, one of them being not having a tail. We have even larger brains than the primates. And we have broad chest, pelvis, shoulders. We also have the ability to have a semi-upright, or in humans' case, a fully upright posture. If we're looking at the classification of primates, not all of them can do this. If they can have a semi-upright or a fully upright posture, then we would classify them as a hominoid. Okay, now our hominins, so the most specific group of organisms that we are looking at, this is referring to humans and our human-like direct ancestors, okay? And the distinguishing features here, so reminder, they are still going to have the features of a primate, they're still going to have the features of a hominoid, but we have those extra features of being bipedal, which means that they walk upright on two legs. So instead of using all four limbs to walk, they only use their legs, which leaves their hands free to do other things as well. They're also the group of organisms that have the largest brain size, which does correlate to intelligence. So it is thought that these are the most intelligent of the three groups. And most of them, because we are walking upright or we're bipedal on two legs, they have longer legs than arms. And we'll talk about that trait as we move through the slides as well.